joined by Zakia and Wango of the Wango Kanja Foundation. We want to talk about the do's and the don'ts and what more can society do to deal with this particular issue of rape. Remember, our SMS line is 22162. To start with the word circuit, interact with us, and of course you can also find us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at acircuit Y254. All right, so we've been talking about a lot of these things. Some of the things you've mentioned, one is you're supposed to visit a medical facility within 72 hours. Why is that very important?
So the reason why we emphasize on within the first 72 hours is for you to actually get the PEP. That's emergency contraceptive, other antibiotics just in case of sexually transmitted infections and HIV, but also to ensure that you receive proper care, and also advice, manage your expectations in a timely manner, because if you don't do that, the risk of conceiving is very high, but also the risk of contracting HIV and other sexually transmitted infections is very high. So we need to contain the situation as soon as possible, but also it's for us to be able to preserve evidence, because we need the evidence if we need to move forward and help you access justice. Yeah.
All right. And you also told you're supposed to go to the police station. Are you supposed to go to the police station first, or are you supposed to seek medical attention first? Which one comes before the other?
The proper way of doing it is to seek medical attention first, because here we're talking about hours. Police station will always be there, and you can still go and get the help that you need. So medical attention first, and that is why, as my colleague here is saying, when you're talking about what we're saying about medical attention, there are areas where we talk about 72 hours. There are areas we talk about 24 hours. Now, we talk about physical treatment, where physical treatment, maybe during this particular act, an individual has been hurt, physically, maybe there's bleeding and all this. So it means that kind of attention has to be addressed very quickly, and that's why we're talking about medical attention as for physical treatment. And then we are talking about pregnancy prevention. We are talking about 72 hours again, where one needs to go, for example, for the emergency pill, as what we're saying. And apart from emergency pill, we are talking about the PEP. This is post exposure prophylaxis. It's actually the ARVs that are given to an individual, but for a period of time. We're talking about 28 days that an individual may have to take those ones if the individual was, of course, is tested and proven that he or she was not, we're talking about she here, was not infected before, that was not HIV positive before. So, and then we are talking about now HIV prevention. We're also talking about other STI prevention that you're talking about. Some of them you have to be given medication within a period of 24 hours. So medical attention comes first, then reporting to the police comes.
All right. And then, of course, you also told that you need to seek the attention of a counselor as soon as possible. Why is that very important?
We actually need to overemphasize that you need to get psychological care, or mental health services, whether it's the one-on-one counseling or other forms of therapy. We have dance therapy and art therapy. The reason why we emphasize is for you to be able to address the way you are feeling, because at that particular time, because you've been violated, there are emotions that you're going through, and we need to help you to bring yourself to a level where you will not start thinking about like suicide. You will not just go on a rampage and become promiscuous, and so we need to help you internalize and digest what you've gone through, so that you are able to start your healing process. It's more about the healing process, because it's important for you to start your healing process. The medical intervention are actually just to help you the physical injuries, but also any other thing that you might need to address in time. But for psychological support, it's over a period of time. It's not just an event where you just come and say, I'll do one counseling session and it's done. You know, it might take a year, it might take 2 years, it may take even 10 years. But also, it depends with who your perpetrator is and also your background. How are you socialized? Because it affects people differently. My experience cannot be your experience. Your experience cannot be somebody else's experience. So we are all socialized differently. We are also created differently. So we are affected by sexual violence differently.
All right.
But the bottom line is we should not condone, rationalize or justify sexual violence in any way.
Yes, indeed. Now, in terms of the law, of course, we have the Sexual Offences Act. We have the laws that protect witnesses and even the victim and survivors themselves. But in terms of recommendation, what more do you feel needs to be done in this? Does the law, is the law clear enough? Does it protect enough, or is there anything more that can be done in terms of the law?
I would say that the law is clear enough. When we look at Njoki Ndung'u's Sexual Offence Act, it clearly brings this out, that so long as you've not consented to any sexual intercourse, that is rape. And remember, we are talking about rape here, because there's a difference between rape and sexual abuse. Yeah, sexual abuse actually stands for something else, including, of course, rape in it. So sexual abuse, it could be that there's no sexual activity taking place, there's no penetration, let me put it that way. So it could be about, some people will just talk about sexual matters in front of an individual. That we are calling is already sexual abuse. If you talk to me about sexual activity that I'm not interested in listening, and you insist, I'll say you are sexually abusing me. If you undress, an individual undresses in front of the other, you know, and that person was not ready for that, that is sexual abuse. But when you are talking about rape, we are talking about penetration. So the law is very clear that the moment you come out and you do such an act to an individual who are not consented, it is rape, and there's a penalty for it. Depending on it, because we say there's attempted rape and there's rape. Attempted rape, that an individual maybe had purposed to commit that particular act, but it did not succeed for so many reasons. Either the person was ambushed, either the other person had to fight and it did not take place. So that when a person is taken to court for that, now we are talking about attempted rape. Now the years in terms of conviction may differ. For example, 12 years for attempted rape and maybe over 30 years for rape. So we are talking about different convictions for different motives that individuals had in terms of committing that act. But the law is very clear. Any time that an individual did not consent for that, that one is punishable by law. The only thing that comes up is that individuals have the fear of talking about it, and it's for so many reasons, as we talked about earlier. It could be fear of victimization, also fear of the fact that maybe the person who committed that particular act is a relative, as we talked about, or it may not be a relative, but it's a person you see on everyday basis, and you don't know what will happen if you go and report. So all these fears, you know, make some individuals not able to go and talk about. Some of them, of course, are minors. It is very hard for them to talk about matters sex. So for minors, in fact, it's very difficult because, again, it will not be justified. In most cases, a parent will come and say, you are lying, or you want it to happen, or you are just, you know, you just want to victimize the other person. That one cannot have happened. So all these things being brushed off away, because it's a minor, may contribute to an individual not wanting to talk about it. And then not forgetting one very important thing, that matters sex are very private, you know, and we've made them very private from day one. As a culture, you know, African culture is very private. You cannot talk about matters sex in public. So even for a child, it's even worse. How do they start talking about, you know, it's labeled as these are things that have to be talked about by grown-ups. You are just a child. How do you come up and start talking about that? How do we even tell about what happened? You cannot even express what really transpired because you don't know where to start. But right now the law says, please come out and talk about it. As a parent, encourage your child to talk about. When you see these nitty-gritty characteristics that you may actually be able to tell you that something is not right with your child, sit down and ask that child. Don't look at it like it could be something else. That something else could have been rape. And this child may go.
Okay. And then, of course, as we wind up, in terms, we also talked about media contributing and culture and all that. What more do you think can be done to change the perspective of trying to normalize rape?
Okay, before I answer that, when she was talking about penetration, it's not limited to sexual organs only. Penetration, people use different, even objects, bottles, broomsticks. It is not limited to sexual organs only. Penetration has a wide range of description. So coming back to media, we need to stop the way we coin even some of the sentences or headlines. When you say, for example, a man had sex with a 12-year-old, that by itself you've actually rationalized to a point where you're saying it's okay for an adult to have sex with a 12-year-old. So we need to even stop overemphasizing or sensualizing sex or anything to do with femininity, because at the end of the day that actually helps, or people, you know, the way you're in shades of gray where a person might not read it or understand it the way you wanted it to come out, and that makes it okay for that person to go beyond the call of nature, where you're saying it's okay to catcall a woman because it doesn't affect her, so let's continue doing it. It's okay to say a married woman does not have a right to be somewhere at 10 p.m. The Constitution is very clear. You have the freedom and the right to express yourself, to be anywhere at any time, because it's your right as a citizen to walk freely, and the government is responsible for your security and safety. So we need to actually hold each other accountable in terms of, if a media house is not ethical in the way they go about their business, we need to call people out and tell them it's wrong. And I can give you a case in point. It was wrong for Lillian Muli to actually ask someone. This is somebody who said people broke into her house, and then after breaking into her house they stole, but not only stole, raped her. So how does provocation, whether you provoke, when you ask someone, did you provoke it? So do you mean like 11 a.m. or 12 or 4 a.m. in the morning, you're dressed in such a way that if thugs get into the house, you know, like I can't even like comprehend that scenario in my head. So we need to be sensitive, because even us as stakeholders, we actually make it impossible for victims and survivors to actually come out and share their ordeals, or even come out to access services in a timely manner. We need to create a safe environment by saying it is wrong to violate someone, not because it is what we need to do, but it is the right thing to do. So we need to change that narrative.
And of course we can never really overemphasize. We can't get to a point where we can say that we've emphasized enough on that particular issue. Rape is rape. It can happen to anyone. It can happen anywhere. It's happening all over the world to, you know, young people, older people, you know, a lot of those people. And we need to keep, of course, fighting this reality that is with us. We need to keep on talking about it. We need to keep on finding a way and ways to deal with it, and especially changing minds of people in society. Of course, not to encourage this particular heinous offense, of course. But I want to thank you so much for coming through today and sharing your experiences and your knowledge with us right here on Real Talk. Well, of course, it's about that time. Real Talk comes to an end. I've been your host, Christine K. Thank you for staying tuned. The conversation can still go on 22162. That's our SMS line. Our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter accounts are at Y254. channel. Thank you so much. My name is Christine Kiai. Of course, up next, Shiko Cosmos and Morris and DJ Toka coming up with all the fun and the music on E-Circuit 2. Stay tuned.
Y254. Imagine.